Welcome back! My name is ballerscuba. This is Video Games Over Time. We are still in 1979, and today we're going to talk about Star Trek. Our story starts back in 1964. Gene Roddenberry, an American screenwriter, came up with a new idea for a science fiction television show that would be modeled on Jonathan Swift's Gulliver's Travels. Roddenberry wanted each episode to act as an adventure story, but also as a morality tale. Roddenberry decided on a spaceship named SS Yorktown in the 23rd century, exploring the Milky Way galaxy. He originally named his captain Robert April, which later became Captain Christopher Pike. Roddenberry drew inspiration from various sources, including A.E. Van Vogt's The Voyage of the Space Beagle, Eric Frank Russell's Marathon Stories, C.S. Forrester's Horatio Hornblower novels, the television series Rocky Jones Space Ranger, and the film Forbidden Planet. When Roddenberry pitched the series to the networks, he characterized his new show as Wagon Train to the Stars, referencing the Wagon Train television show. In April 1964, Roddenberry presented the draft, now named Star Trek, to Desilu Productions. Herbert F. Solow, Desilu's director of production, agreed to make the show, signing a 3-year program development contract with Roddenberry. Desilu, along with Roddenberry, then pitched the idea to CBS. They turned it down, citing another space show in development. That show would be Lost in Space. So they turned to NBC. NBC commissioned a pilot, which became the episode known as The Cage. NBC turned down the pilot, stating that the episode was too cerebral. But NBC saw potential in the show and commissioned a second pilot, which would become the episode Where No Man Has Gone Before. The cast was almost completely replaced, with only Leonard Nimoy playing Spock and Majel Barrett staying between episodes. NBC approved this second pilot and scheduled Star Trek to be aired in the upcoming 1966 fall season. The second pilot introduced most of the familiar characters from the show, including Captain Kirk, Lieutenant Commander Scott, and Lieutenant Sulu. The ship's doctor in the second pilot, though, was Dr. Mark Piper. When filming began for the second season, Dr. Piper was replaced by Dr. McCoy. Before the first season began, the characters of Lieutenant Uhura, Yeoman Rand, and Nurse Chapel were added. Before the show was set to air, Desilu nearly canceled the show. Desilu had gone from just making one half-hour show in The Lucy Show to making 2 expensive hour-long shows in Mission Impossible and Star Trek, going into debt in order to finance the productions. Herbert Solow was able to convince Lucille Ball that both shows should continue, though. Many of the sets and designs were created by director Matt Jeffries, including the design of the ship itself, now named the USS Enterprise. Matt Jeffries' brother, John Jeffries, also helped with the design, creating the handheld phaser weapons and the set for the bridge. Bill Theiss created the uniforms, including the iconic Starfleet uniforms and the costumes for various aliens. Artist Hua Chang designed and manufactured the props, including the communicator and the tricorder, before helping to create various aliens. The first regular episode of Star Trek aired on September 8th, 1966. Reviews for the show were mixed, but the ratings were high because the show debuted against mostly reruns on other channels. When the second episode aired against all new programming, Star Trek fell to second place, behind CBS. The following 2 episodes did not rank in the top 50 in the overall ratings. Of the 16 ordered episodes, after 4 had aired, things were not looking good for Star Trek. NBC saw that the show was popular among favorable demographics, particularly a younger audience, and ordered 10 more episodes in the first season, and ordered a second season. Although, NBC also made the decision to air the show later at night than originally promised. During the second season, Star Trek's ratings continued to decline, despite the addition of a younger character in Ensign Chekhov. NBC realized that the viewership of Star Trek was not only young, but also in the well-educated male demographic, and they were dedicated. NBC received more mail regarding Star Trek than any other show except The Monkees, begging for the show to be renewed for a third season. NBC would renew the show for a third season, making the unusual step of airing that decision live on television after the March 1st, 1968 episode, The Omega Glory. For the third season, NBC decided to air the show at 10 p.m., far later than what was originally given for the show. Gene Roddenberry became upset with the network, thinking that the network was trying to kill the show. Roddenberry withdrew from the daily production of the show before the start of the third season. NBC replaced Roddenberry with Fred Freiberger and gave the show a smaller budget. This led to a perceived decrease in quality. Despite another letter-writing campaign by the fans, NBC canceled the show in February 1969, with only 79 episodes of the show being made. Despite being canceled, Star Trek was purchased by several companies for syndication, when other networks re-air an older program. It was through syndication that Star Trek grew their audience and became a cult classic. Airing in the late afternoon and early evening, Star Trek was now able to reach the younger audience that NBC denied the show with its late airing time. Star Trek's success is said to come from its ideals and the characters. Star Trek represents an idealized version of the future, a time in which people are motivated primarily by doing what is right and what protocol demands. As the opening narration of the show describes, space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission: to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before. The primary decisions are made by Captain Kirk. Kirk's chief advisors are Spock and McCoy. Spock is half Vulcan, an alien race that values logic over everything else. McCoy, on the other hand, is much more emotional and willing to break the rules to do what he feels is right. It is often the debates and arguments between these three characters that make up the philosophical part of the show. Throughout the show, the Enterprise encounters many hostile alien races, the most prominent being the Klingons and the Romulans. These aliens would typically be fought in space battles, although away missions were led by the crew as well. By 1972, Star Trek's fan base had grown to the point that a convention was held in New York City with more than 3,000 fans attending. Over the years, fans of the show got more devoted to the show. It was because of this fan base that Star Trek returned with an animated series in 1973 and 1974. Named Star Trek the Animated Series, the cartoon lasted just 22 episodes. It was produced by Filmation, known for their limited animation techniques, and Paramount. The cartoon was faithful to the original show, with several writers, including Gene Roddenberry, returning to help write the cartoon. Much of the original cast also returned to voice their beloved characters, thanks to the insistence of Leonard Nimoy. The major exception to this is the absence of Ensign Chekhov due to budget reasons. Walter Koenig, the actor who played Chekhov, did sell a script for an episode as part of the deal Filmation made with Nimoy. The animated series allowed for more imaginative characters and settings that could not be done in a live-action series. It created new aliens on board the Enterprise and created a rec room where the computer can create a holographic environment for the crew to experience. Star Trek the Animated Series was received well by critics, winning an Emmy in 1975. The series was popular with adults, but being an animated feature, it was thought to be geared toward children. The show was canceled in 1974. Whether the animated series is considered canon in the Star Trek universe is something that is still debated. It is best to say that some aspects of the show carried forward, while others did not. In 1975, Paramount, who had produced the last season of the original series as well as the animated series, allocated $3 to $5 million, roughly $14 to $24 million in 2020, for Gene Roddenberry to write a script for a film. Roddenberry gave a first draft named The God Thing to Paramount on June 30th. However, Paramount was not happy with the script and started fielding new scripts from other writers. Several writers wrote scripts for the film, but all were rejected. Roddenberry instead started creating scripts for a new show titled Star Trek Phase 2. The original cast, who had all agreed to come back for the film, agreed to come back for the new show, with the exception of Leonard Nimoy, so a replacement for Spock was written into the show. The series' pilot episode, named In Thy Image, was written by Alan Dean Foster, and Harold Livingston turned the treatment into a teleplay. The script was presented to Michael Eisner, the president and CEO of Paramount Pictures, who decided this script should be a full feature film. Just 2.5 weeks before production on Phase 2 was set to begin, Paramount canceled everything in favor of the new feature film. On March 29, 1978, Paramount hosted a large press conference announcing that Academy Award-winning director of West Side Story and The Sound of Music, Robert Wise, would be directing a film adaptation of Star Trek with a projected budget of $15 million, just under $60 million in 2020. The script of the film would not be finalized before production started, due to conflict between the writers. Due to constant rewriting, fewer than 20 pages of the original 150-page screenplay would be used in the final film. All the sets, costumes, models, and props had to be redesigned as the franchise moved to the more detailed world of film. The upgrade from television in the late 60s to a film in the late 70s required a lot of technical upgrades. Always wanting to remain scientifically accurate, the film received consultation from NASA, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, MIT, a former astronaut, and writer Isaac Asimov, among others. Filming for Star Trek the Motion Picture lasted for 4 months and encountered several major issues, including leaked scripts, delays, sickness, reshoots, angry actors, and, of course, budget issues. Post-production also had issues, with a lot of major changes happening after principal photography had already finished. Star Trek the Motion Picture released on December 7th, 1979. To coincide with the film release, lots of merchandise was released, including a novelization of the film written by Gene Roddenberry and published by Pocket Books, a comic book adaptation released by Marvel Comics, and Star Trek Happy Meals from McDonald's. The final budget for the film would be $45 million, $160 million in 2020, including the costs for Phase 2 production. This was the largest budget for any American film to that point. Star Trek the Motion Picture set a box office record for the highest opening weekend gross sales, making over $11.9 million, $42.3 million in 2020. Overall, the film grossed over $82 million in the United States, over $291 million in 2020, and $139 million worldwide, over $494 million in 2020. Although the movie was profitable, Paramount saw these numbers as disappointing. With the critics, the film did not do well. Critics cited the slow pace, particularly with the movements of the spaceships, poor acting, and a thin plot. The emphasis of the film is clearly on atmosphere and special effects. Imitating 2001: A Space Odyssey from 1968, over a decade earlier, Star Trek: A Motion Picture is more than a normal episode of the original series, but it ultimately becomes unmemorable in the scope of the Star Trek franchise. Nevertheless, Star Trek had essentially relaunched itself as a franchise ready for film. Work began almost immediately on a sequel. Star Trek from the 60s and 70s had a slow but growing impact on science fiction as a whole. If you have not seen any Star Trek from this era, it is worth watching. The two television series are products of their time, and will look dated to a modern audience. But if you are interested in starting the franchise, the original 60s series has some great episodes and great moments in it. The animated series and the film could probably be skipped. And that is a brief introduction to the Star Trek franchise through 1979. The Star Trek franchise inspired a lot of aspects of video games. It did inspire several video games before 1979, including two mainframe text-based games, but it's in 1979 that we will play our first big game inspired by the franchise. That is going to do it for Star Trek for now. My name is ballerscuba. This has been Video Games Over Time. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in our next video where we'll talk about a new computer system from a familiar name.